Ahoy there, Captain Benzie here, coming at you with the first episode of a new little mini-series that I'm going to be calling Hard to Port, because it's a nautical pun. And I love nautical puns, even if they're terrible. Now, the aim of this series ultimately is going to be taking a look at some of the various different games that have been ported to the Android platform, hence the pun, and downloading them, giving them a try, and letting you guys know what my opinions are and if they're worth investing in. Now, the reason I say worth investing in is because most ported games on Android have an upfront download attached to them. They don't have microtransactions or in-app purchases, that kind of thing. It is usually just that you pay to download the game. Thus, of course, if there are any that you want me to try, any that you're interested to know my opinions on, let me know. It may be one that I've already purchased and downloaded, and if not, well, you know what, I might be willing to give it a go and give it a try. That said, of course, because this little mini-series is going to be requiring me to go into games that have an upfront purchase, any support that you're willing to give on this would be awesome if you want to come and join me on Patreon, or just let the ads play out here on YouTube. Anyway, following on from yesterday's Hero Versus video, today I wanted to have a look at GAROU, Mark of the Wolves. Now, this was one of the first fighting games that really got its teeth into me, so to speak. Back in 2001, a friend of mine had like a pirated copy of this on his Dreamcast. It's a game that never actually made it to Europe. I believe it was just Japan and North America only. But he ended up getting it in like a little bargain bin pirated CD thing from one of the traders down our local market of all places, and we absolutely loved it, and I got thoroughly hooked on this and on from there. Anyway, enough about the game, let's actually have a jump in and have a look. Now, it's worth noting that GAROU is one of these ports that, of course, does work with a controller. Normally, I usually play this using my Razer Raiju mobile controller, and there is a video on this channel me reviewing that. 100% recommend it as a controller. I'm still waiting for my jungle cat to arrive, and there'll be a video on that soon. But I'm going to do this video entirely using the controls you see on screen, just to showcase that you don't need a controller to make this one work, because I thoroughly love this game. It's got a great little cast of characters. Some of you may recognise from games like King of Fighters, obviously people like Rock Howard, and of course everyone's favourite from Fatal Fury. We have Terry Bogard. Of course, he's not in his usual red trucker hat and jacket in this one. He's in a much fluffier leather jacket sort of thing going on. I always used to play either as Terry or as B. Janet, Bon Janet. Now, I like her in her second ultimate costume, the blue one, so that's what I'm going to be demonstrating here. We're going to jump into some of the story mode for this. It's just on easy difficulty. If any of you have played GAROU Mark of the Wolves, or if any of SNK's fighting games, I'm sure you'll know how absolutely ridiculous the difficulty on these can be, and GAROU is no different at all. So I'm going to go with B. Janet in her blue costume. You have what's called a TOP. This is ultimately a special bonus when your health is in the highlighted area. You get health regen, additional damage to some of your attacks, and you unlock some special attacks. I like to have mine in the middle. And then in we go. So let's go into this one with B. Janet versus Dong Juan. I'm hoping I get to fight my favourite named character in this, because there is a character named Butt. Now, for me, just straight away, the artistic style of this, considering this was a Dreamcast, PlayStation 2 sort of era game, using the hand-drawn pixel art style, it is gorgeous. The animation is stunning. Just look at the shading on the clothes and cloths. Combos and moves are all very, very simple. It's your typical sort of Street Fighter fare going on there. So that's like your Hadouken combo. There are occasionally the Z inputs as well. But ultimately for B. Janet, it's mainly just your sort of quarter circle forward Hadouken things, and same with going backwards, if you want to do some things like that. She's got some great little rush moves. It's just, I've always liked her as a character. She's fairly fast moving. She's got some decent sort of ranged attacks with the whirlwind. Let's see if I can get the super off. These are slightly harder to pull off using the on-screen stick, but as you can see there, they are possible even if I do miss. The accuracy, of course, is important. It's why I do prefer control on this, and here I am in TOP. And let's just end this match now. There we go. Now you can see here that the controls actually are not bad for on-screen, and the fact that you can add the AB and the AC, which are two of the harder things that you may have to do fairly frequently as part of the control system, it kind of makes sense, and there we are, that's the special, actually pulled off correctly for once. But the controls are snappy, they're responsive. The stick itself, I can see there's a slight graphical error going on with it at the moment, but it doesn't usually have that, which is strange that it's decided to take the time of this video to do that for me. But there we are, it is the way it is. A and C are, of course, your punches, light and heavy. B and D are your kicks. You hold back to block, which is something I've always been terrible at in every fighting game ever. There are moments like this where you can see on screen now where the sort of the animation does suddenly freeze up, but it only seems to happen at the end of level, the end of stage bits. So it doesn't seem to cause any problems. Here we are up against Terry. Now, okay, a couple of graphical errors we've seen so far. I don't know if that's my phone or if it's the game or what's going on there. But certainly the stick graphical animation to me doesn't matter in the slightest. And certainly the end of match 1 can be annoying, but it's not a huge issue in that it doesn't actually affect any of the gameplay. It's only you just miss your sort of celebration animation, which I know to some people could be considered a big deal, but there we go. Terry, you're hitting me hard. But this, to me, I don't know, I always loved GAROU. The art style of it just really impressed me. It always looked, to me, like Street Fighter games. Street Fighter, like 1 and 2 were very basic. Third Strike had some beautiful animations, and that was similar sort of time to this. But like King of Fighters 98 just looks, to me, so dated in comparison. Considering just the sheer amount of detail that you can get on these characters, it's still to this day, to me, stands up as a beautiful looking title. The fact that this game is 20 years old now is, it's frankly disgusting. Let's get that power special off and check out that damage. Now, I did say in the Hero Versus video, I'm not overly great at fighting games. I kind of understand my basics on how to do footsies and how to kind of zone someone into a situation, and there's the end of match freeze frame bug again. It hasn't always done this, and there have been updates. Again, look at that artwork, stunning artwork. And it does have a great little storyline to it as well with GAROU. It's very, very basic. It's kind of it's the typical kind of fighting game. Everyone's been pulled into this little mini tournament for all their different reasons, and of course Janet being a pirate, she's here looking for the treasure, for the prize money. This guy Grant has come out of the woodwork. I don't honestly know the story. It's a fighting game. No one plays these things for the story, because the stories are always absolutely insane. Check it out on Wikipedia if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. To me, this is purely about the fighting action, and I think, I think if I remember rightly, I did have a check on this earlier. It's about $2.99 on the App Store. This is not an expensive app at any, any sort of any understanding. It is a very cheap little game to download, cheaper than a cup of coffee, for crying out loud, and it is absolutely one of the classics of the fighting game genres. Just some of the characters here. Terry, obviously Terry recently made it into Smash Bros, and a lot of people are going, who the hell is this Terry guy? It's like, really? One of the biggest names in fighting game history, and you're saying, oh, he's like a nobody? Yeah, that's not a good look, Smash Bros community, but there we are. And it's just, it keeps things nice and simple, which I like. One of the things that got me always about Street Fighter is how difficult some of the moves can be to pull off, and comboing into each other is just insane. Here, you kind of get, I think it's 6 or 7 special moves per character. They're all very straightforward to pull off, and then it's just kind of left up to you to figure out the rest. There's none of these like 12, 13 long combo strings that you get in modern day fighters. It is purely about like outsmarting your opponent, and again, I mentioned in the Hero Versus video, that to me is a big draw in any fighting game. If it's simple inputs, like the hardest thing you ever have to do in here is either like a quarter circle input like that, or with her special, yeah, you do have the double quarter circle, which is a little bit trickier to pull off. I'm going to try it now. There we go. Slightly trickier to pull off on a screen stick, but easier using the D-pad on a gamepad, which, again, as I said, is compatible with GAROU. Now, the interesting thing about this version of the game as well is it does have a multiplayer version. You can actually play against opponents in Bluetooth, so if you were so inclined, you could actually both download this game and play do a little mini GAROU tournament in multiplayer with like your friends on their phone. And considering that phones are something you just carry with you anyway, that's a great little thing. And if I ever make it down to somewhere like Rage or one of the big fighting game tournaments in Harare or whatever, 100% I'll take this with me and see if I can find a way to get other contestants on the scene there to actually download it and just have a little bit of a play while we're sitting around doing our own thing. To me, not enough mobile games utilize that feature. The idea that actually, it's a mobile, it is a mobile. It's a mobile gaming device. It's in your pocket. Why do we not have more like Bluetooth multiplayer? Certainly other handheld consoles like the 3DS, the PSP, that kind of thing have always done this. In fact, one of the things on here is one of the controller settings on here is based on the what's it called? The PSP Go, I think it was called. Is the controller input thing there? So obviously you can download this on I think they know you can download this on a ROM'd out PSP, which quite frankly is a great little way to go. And if you can look that up on YouTube, how to do all this kind of thing. Now, ultimately, we're getting further on in the storyline here, which does mean we're going to start coming up against some of the much tougher opponents. Grant does have a habit, even on the... I mean, heck, this is the easiest difficulty. But even on the easiest difficulty, Grant does have a habit of absolutely pounding me. It's not the fairest of fights. I'm pretty sure the game is reading your inputs when it goes through, when you're fighting it. Certainly when you're up against Kane, who's kind of like the final boss of the entire thing. He really does just seem to cheat. I'm not going to put that lightly, he definitely cheats. But that's the wonderful thing about games like this. The difficulty ramps up, and heck, if you can't beat him, there are ways around it. In fact, when you get a game over screen in this game, and you get at least a little bit of story on like some of the last missions here, they are so po-faced, it's ridiculous. Like here, ha, I'm going to destroy you, come on, freak. Okay. Obviously translated, and not with the greatest level of care, because let's be honest, who is playing a fighting game for the storyline? But yeah, like the final bosses definitely do cheat. If you get the game over screen up against them, you do end up in a position where the game does offer you some sort of get out of jail cards. Like you can come back in with your power maxed out, or with your opponent on 25% health, which it's a great little way of just making sure that you don't get bored too easily and you can just punch through Kane and sort of do your thing. So I don't mind that. I know some purists don't like it, but to me this is just a great bit of like fighting game history. It's a fantastically fun game that actually is surprisingly snappy and responsive, even using on-screen touch controls. You know, this is just great fun to play, and it just feels awesome. It's got its little bugs, like, again, we've got the end of match freeze frame, which on this one's a bit more egregious, as we are missing out on bits of story. Haha, Pant, I did it. You were great. You better pay for this dress. Later, weirdo. Bye-bye. Okay, Janet, as you were. I'm going to skip through some of these to give you something to work towards. This is Grant, and Grant is ever so slightly insane as like a almost end of game boss. He just seems to interrupt your moves, seems to be able to block almost everything that you throw at him, and the things that he doesn't block just don't seem to do much damage compared to how much he can do to you. Certainly this is, he's, as I said, it's not the most fair of fights, but it does inspire you to get good, I suppose. And you've got things like the survival mode, the multiplayer, and of course just the storyline otherwise to keep you going in the meantime. See if come on, can I get my special off? Please, can I get my special off? I'm in a corner here, I could really do with this. Nope, he's gonna utterly crush me in the corner there, because this is Grant, and this is what Grant does. Back we come. Round 2. Oh, crikey. Bit of footsies. Backwards, can I get in there? Yes! Yes! That's a full power move, and look at how little damage it did in the grand scheme of things. Because Grant. Because the game is just insane and just seems to know what you're going to do before you do it. Yes, I know I hesitated there. I'm sitting there looking at my health and thinking, oh great, this is the end of the run. It's kind of hard to do this while talking. I do normally make it to Kane. Grant is usually a tough fight for me, but there we are. That's Garou's sort of its main mode. Now I am going to, you see here, you've got the continue service there. You've got all the different options of what you can do, whether you just want to go back in as a normal game or go in with quarter of opponent power, difficulty level down, that kind of thing. You do also get to choose a new character if you wanted, so I could go back in as Terry up against Grant. And you'll see when I say that 25% here, it's slightly game breaking. Like, heck, check his HP now. Yeah, it's almost sad. Although, in fairness, Grant and Kane, even at 25% health, can still really put up a fight if you're not prepared for them. I do like Terry. Terry is such a classic character. Standard! Just got some great little badass quotes, and Again, just stunningly animated. And who doesn't like a guy just screaming bang and flying across the screen like that? There's a certain amount of just awesomeness to that. There we are, that's him down. Anyway, now I'm going to come out of this because I don't want to show you guys Kane and just talk about the different options. So you've seen single player there. There is also the single player survival mode, which is just you keep going against opponent after opponent after opponent, and your health gets whittled down each time you get a small bit of healing between matches, but otherwise you carry your damage over, and it's how far can you get. There is training, which is your typical, what you'd expect in a fighting game, and when you go into training, you can choose what your opponent does, whether they just stand there, whether they actually fight back, whether they're crouching, so you can try different combos and different moves on those. Multiplayer, as I said here, this is the one where you go in and it uses Bluetooth to go up against your opponent. Now, it does say here, set Wi-Fi on device to off, with the exception of your 2P partner. Avoid playing in an environment with other devices connected to Bluetooth. You can use controllers. I have tested this. It does still work with controllers. You've got settings in here where you can change your difficulty. Yeah, the fact that there are people who play on difficulty level 8, it boggles the mind. I struggle enough on difficulty 1 with controller in the arcade, back on the Dreamcast, you name it. But you've got all of those there. Video options, whether you want it full screen, whether you want it down to window or its standard original size. You can even have your scan lines on. I actually do like having these on, believe it or not. Video filtering is an option, key configuration of where you want these buttons to all be, where you'd like those laid out on the screen, that kind of thing. Just, again, can help you out. You can resize them, you can change the opacity, all that kind of thing. And of course you've got the how to play, and you've got various different achievements on this one as well, which is quite nice. Not enough games these days on the Google Play Store, I think, do the achievement thing properly, so it's nice to see that a ported game actually does give you something back there. I've actually managed to level up from level 16 to level 18 just by playing GAROU over this past week, and going through playing as different characters and getting the achievements for completing the game on each of those different characters, which was nice. You know, it gave me something to do when I was out of Wi-Fi, and just sort of sit down and play it, and it's been awesome. Now, I know I've been talking recently a lot about the Brutal Democracy team as well. They were actually asking what your favourite fighting game was. It popped up in Twitter as a conversation, what your favourite fighting game was, what was the one that really got you hooked on this as a genre. Someone answered GAROU. I immediately said, oh my gosh, I need to do a video on this. So thank you ever so much, guys, for coming and listening to me rant and rave about one of my favourite games, one of my favourite fighting games, and how well it has ported to Android. Now, if you're into fighting games and you've never played GAROU, for half the price of a cup of coffee, I think this is literally $3, download it, give it a go. This is a fantastic piece of fighting gaming history that you can play on the go in your pocket with responsive controls. It's not perfect, it's not 100% bug-free, but it is an amazing little gem, and it works so well with controller as well that it's hard to turn up. Anyway, folks, thank you ever so much for watching. Happy sailing, and I'll see you in the next episode.